All right. Let's see if anybody's on here. I'm going to try to keep this a little short today. I do have an errand to run in about 15 minutes. So I'm going to give it a little bit of time here. So if you guys want to show up. And I'll give my summary on the men's basketball team shortly. I'll wait about a minute. If nobody joins, I'll just do it anyway. All right. Well, if no one is going to join, that's fine. But still, for my so as you can see on my banner, this is my summary of the University of Hawaii men's basketball team season for 2023 to 24. And I have to say that although that some were saying that this was Hawaii's payoff year, unfortunately, it kind of didn't work out that way. Did we win the series? We did not. We ended up third overall, but fourth in the standings if you count UC San Diego being where they are, because they ended up, I believe, second place in the standings. And unfortunately, UC San Diego, they're ineligible for the Big West tournament, mainly because they are transitioning to Division I. So this is the last year of their probationary period, so to speak. But for UH men's basketball, this was another season to remember. They finished the season at 20-14. And obviously, and if it weren't for a couple of injuries, we may very well have finished third in the conference standings ahead of UCSD. But unfortunately, in the series, we started out really, really terribly. We started out winning only 2 of the first 8 conference games. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, they did, because UH would lose more sec for the rest of the season to an ACL knee injury. And that turned out to be a big loss for the University of Hawaii. And then, just when things couldn't get any worse, JoVon McClanahan went down for 4 games due to a shoulder injury. And fortunately, McClanahan did come back, but that was also the time. That also turned out to be a bit of a blessing in disguise, because, quite frankly, JoVon, he was certainly cutting it at the point position. But part of me felt that he bided his time a little too much and took the shot clock down to 4-5. The shot clock down to 5 seconds, and UH would be forced to make a play. So, quite frankly, I still thought that this was a season to remember, because when UC San Diego came around for their home matchup, UH turned things around and managed to take them to overtime, and they ended up winning that game in OT 94-86. And that was all thanks to Juan Munoz's heroic game-tying triple in regulation. Unfortunately, Noel Coleman couldn't bank a half-court heave to make it and possibly prevent overtime. But still, what kind of grade would I give this season? I would say maybe a B+, mainly because we started out pretty slow, but we still managed to find a way to turn the tables and wind up third overall in the standings, if you don't count not counting UC San Diego being out there. And quite frankly, I would have liked for UCSD's games to still not count for conference play for all sports, because they're still ineligible for the tournament. So obviously, I was still optimistic that they were going to turn around, that they were going to turn things around sooner or later, and they did. But not like last season, where when Juan Munoz went down with the Achilles injury, it was every single game turned out to be a tale of two halves. You know, they would have one good half, one bad half. A good first half, bad second half, or a bad first half, good second half. And as a result, last season, they would end up losing a number of games by at least one possession. This season, they really knew how. This season, they got Juan Munoz back. His NCAA waiver was granted, and he was able to return this season. And quite frankly, I personally was glad that Juan Munoz was going to get a tenure here at the University of Hawaii, because of his caliber was solid proof. I mean, Juan, he's really good at what he does, and I think that he really guided us to some wins that probably looked like losses on paper. And Noel Coleman really came through, did well. Other guys also stepped up off the bench, like Akira Jacobs, Cody Williams, and Tom Beatty, and more Sec until he went down with an injury. But make no mistake, this team is going to be all new. But do I feel like this team is going to show us something and maybe get a conference title? I sure as hell hope so. But with how guys like Williams and Beatty grew, you can't help but think that this team certainly filled some voids. And of course, we already know about two guys that are going to be joining the season next season. Aaron Hunkin-Claytor, who's actually a local product but went to high school on the mainland. And of course, AJ Economou, who was signed last season but had to sit out this year because of transitioning, of course. But still, I thought that this was a season to remember, because although we started out pretty bad, losing the first conference game to Cal State Fullerton, and of course, JoVon McClanahan's last second heave had gone in the bucket, but it was not honored, and eventually UH would lose in overtime. And then things got pretty worse. Fortunately, UH managed to win at home against UC Riverside in a game where it seemed like they were having trouble trying to seize control. And then after that, they were able to come through with a convincing win over UC Riverside. And that's a team that UH has had some trouble with. And this year, they were able to break a jinx that had eluded them since joining the Big West in 2012. They couldn't get a season sweep over Riverside. And I've been asking Ganot, head coach Eran Ganot, how come that couldn't happen? What's going on there? And he didn't know either. So they were able to fix that with an overtime win at Riverside. They led by 6 at halftime, built it up to 10, saw that lead go away, but they were still able to salvage it and go to overtime and win by 3. And you can't help but feel that this team is going to this is going to be an all-new team next year, but with guys like Ruli Adef, Morsek, Tom Beatty, Akira Jacobs, and Cody Williams possibly returning, this team is going to really show us something next season. So, obviously, unfortunately, they weren't able to get 2 wins over UC Davis. They would lose by 12 at their place, and they were trailing just about from start to finish. The same thing happened in the Big West Tournament semis. And UH had to play catch-up. But what really told the story about the loss was the fact that UH could not score a field goal in the first 7 minutes of the game, not counting free throws. That's what really hurt them. CSUN, they were able to come back and lead by halftime, and they were able to hold on. They efficiently responded to every run that CSUN made in the quarterfinals, and they ended up winning by a sizable margin. Now, do I think they could have won UC Davis? Certainly. They knew how to take UC Davis out of rhythm. And unfortunately, their backcourt of Elijah Pepper and T.Y. Johnson were just enough for Davis to hold on and make it to the championship match. Unfortunately, Davis would lose to eventual champions Long Beach State. And that actually took me by surprise because I was watching the Northern Arizona game on Spectrum Sports, and college basketball analyst Andy Katz, he thought it was going to be either Santa Barbara, Irvine, or Hawaii representing the Big West in the Big West in the NCAA tournament. And unfortunately, neither one of those teams did so. Instead, it turned out to be an unlikely candidate in Long Beach State. And Long Beach State, that's another team that we split the series with. And Long Beach, we fell behind by as much as 20 at their place at Walter Pyramid. We came back and unfortunately lost by 8. And that was also at the time where we were still searching for answers. But Irvine was probably our worst game at their place. We ended up spotting them by 93 points. That was the most UH had given up. But again, we were still searching for answers. We were still searching for answers before we finally turned a corner before the UCSD game. And after what happened against UC San Diego and UC Davis at home, I was officially convinced that the team had turned a corner. And how much did it take for me to convince that they turned a corner? Quite a bit, because they won over UCSD in overtime, and they ended up going 9 for 11 against UC Davis in the first half, and we were able to put them away pretty easily. So I was convinced then. But, of course, in the final 5 games, we only lost to Davis. And, of course, because of their backcourt and Pepper and Johnson. And, of course, in the semis, once again, Pepper and Johnson combined for over 50% of their total of UC Davis's total points. Because in the semi matchup, we ended up losing 68-65. And Pepper and Johnson, Pepper at 25, T.Y. Johnson at 12. That's 37 points. That's definitely over 50% of Davis's 68 points total. Okay? So, and if you're the University of Hawaii, you're happy that Elijah Pepper is leaving. But props to Pepper. I got nothing but respect for that kid. He's a good player. Bryce Pope is a good player for UC San Diego. And, of course, Max Jones for Cal State Fullerton. But he didn't really do much in both games, in both of UH's games against them. But Cal Poly, I can't imagine how their head coach must be feeling, because how did Cal Poly do? 0-20. Okay? And Cal Poly and Cal State Fullerton were the 2 teams that did not go to the Big West tournament aside from UC San Diego because they're still ineligible. So, obviously, I certainly hope that UH will we'll have a winning season sooner or later. The only question seems to be when. It could have been this season, but because we were still searching for answers early in the season, it didn't turn out that way. And hell, had we started the season like we did towards the end, we would certainly have made a play for first place this season. Not going to lie to you. So, obviously, it is back to the drawing board. UH is really going to have to do some serious Easter egg hunting to find some good players and some quality point guards and some quality shooters, because with losing 6 seniors, including the grad transfers, this is going to be an all-new team next year. And you certainly hope you don't lose anybody to the portal. Because last season we lost 4 guys to the portal: Justice Jackson, Beon Riley, Zord Ed, and Amaro Lotto. But I certainly hope we don't lose anybody to the portal this year. But, of course, the reality is no college is immune to the portal. Let's just face it. So, anyway, guys, that's all for today. I thought I'd keep it short since I got to head out for an errand. So, anyway, guys, thanks for watching. I'm going to bounce out of here. And remember, subscribe, and we'll see you all next season for UH Men's Basketball 2024-25. We'll see you all then.